some might say that this is a bug. To me, looks like an animation. Welcome to Mobile Application Tutorials. My name's Nigel. In Performance Tutorial Part 1, we tried out the Picasso library. In Part 2, we created our AsyncTask to load the files off a background thread. In Part 3, we've done the in-sample sizing to load a reduced bitmap on the async thread. But that gave us a new problem, which we define as concurrency. Basically, the problem we were seeing was with the image views, when you scroll down the gallery list, the image views keep recycling and changing. So that by the time the async task is ready to load the image into the bitmap into a new image view, that image view is sometimes changed, so it gets loaded into a different image view. Also, when you fire off an async task, you fire off a number of async tasks, you've got no idea which order they're going to get executed and returned back in. So there's two issues here: the recycling of the image views and the order that the async tasks run and complete in. So we've got to try and find a solution to that. And one solution is we can create an object that holds a reference to the async task, holds a reference to the BitmapWorkerTask, and this object can be called by our image view to check if the async task that's assigned to it holds the data, in this case the image view itself. If so, everything's good. If not, the image view will just have to discard that async task and create a new one. Anyway, let's get coding. There's going to be a bit of it on this one. Okay, first thing we want to do is go to the BitmapWorkerTask. What I need to do is provide the image view back to our image adapter, our image file back to the image adapter. So I'm going to create a new variable here. It's a file. Let's call it member image file. Okay, that we're going to assign the data to that and the async task do in background method. And here's where we get the file from here where we execute the async task. Now I'm going to create an additional function. This is private. I'm going to do a get image file down here, a getter. And return image file. Okay, for the time being, that's all I want to do to the BitmapWorkerTask. Now we go into image adapter. This is where all the grunt work's going to happen. So remember that object I was talking about that's going to contain a reference to the BitmapWorkerTask? We're going to create that now. I'll create that up the top. So that object's going to be a class. We'll call it async drawable, and this class is going to extend bitmap drawable class here. We need to add a class in here, of course. Okay, it's going to have a member variable here, which is going to be a reference to our BitmapWorkerTask. It's going to be the week reference that we've seen before, and it's going to be a BitmapWorkerTask, and we'll just call it a simple name here. Let's just call it task reference. Now we need to initialize this class, this reference inside the constructor. This constructor is going to take a number of variables to build the drawable. So the first variable is going to be the resources. Next variable will be a bitmap. This bitmap is going to be a placeholder. It's not going to be, we're not actually going to be loading the bitmap. It's purely for the construction of the object. So while we're there, let me create the placeholder here now. Let's call it place. And we'll go back down, and the third variable is going to be the BitmapWorkerTask. So we need to initialize the super constructor from the parent. Do that in here, and we pass it resources and the bitmap to build our drawable object. And then we can initialize our reference. Task reference equals new week reference, and it's going to be left out. We need BitmapWorkerTask. So enter that in here. Okay, right. I can actually delete this. It's been deprecated. Okay, I need to provide one more method, and that's to return our BitmapWorkerTask when we want to call it from the ImageView. So, BitmapWorkerTask. We'll just call it getBitmapWorkerTask. Turn, and it's the week reference, task reference dot get. Okay, so this is the object. It holds a reference to our BitmapWorkerTask. Okay, now we need to create some helper functions and functions to check our BitmapWorkerTask have the data we need for our image view. So I'll go down to the bottom. First one I'm going to create is a getBitmapWorkerTask. It's just a helper function. BitmapWorkerTask. And this one's going to take an image view. Okay, with that image view, I can actually get our async drawable object, which is a drawable object. The first thing here is to create a drawable object. We'll just call it drawable. And we can get that from getDrawable. Okay, once we've got the drawable, we want to check that it's of the type of the class we created, the AsyncDrawable. So we'll check that. So if drawable is instant of AsyncDrawable. So we know if the drawable assigned to the image view is an AsyncDrawable, we can actually get the BitmapWorkerTask. So first thing we want to do is create an AsyncDrawable. Cast it from the drawable, and then underneath that we can actually return AsyncDrawable and the BitmapWorkerTask that we created inside that class. Okay, and down here, if the image view doesn't have an AsyncDrawable associated with us, we just return null. Ooh, how hard can it be to spell return? Okay, that's the first helper class. Now, the next class, that's the first helper method. Now, the next method we're going to create is going to be checking the BitmapWorkerTask itself, just to see if it holds the applicable data that the current image view is looking for. What shall I call that? This one's going to return a Boolean, and we'll sort. Let me just call it check bitmap. It's going to take two variables, one of the file that it's looking for, because we're going to do a comparison check of that. I'll just call it image file. Another one's going to be an ImageView. Okay. Right, the first thing we want to do is to get the BitmapWorkerTask, and we can get that from the method we just created. And pass the image view. Oh, why is the editor doing that? Okay, now actually we'll do a check on the BitmapWorkerTask object itself just to see it is an object. So just check it's not equal to null. That's important. Okay, now I've got the BitmapWorkerTask. I can actually get the image, file itself. Let's call it let's call it worker file. And we've got the BitmapWorkerTask, and we'll just call let me double check that name in here. I don't know why I put M in here. I don't like it. Let's go back to here. Okay, now since we've got our file from the BitmapWorkerTask, and we've got the file that the image view here is expecting, we can check them. If they're both the same, that's okay, but if they're not the same, we need to cancel the BitmapWorkerTask. So if worker file is not equal to image file, we need to cancel the task. Calling cancel. See, that's true. And I'm just going to put something. because we're returning a Boolean. I'm just going to put a little comment here. Bitmap worker task file is the same as that image view is expecting to do nothing. Therefore, we can just return false. We're not going to go any further when this methods are called. Okay. But if the bitmap worker task is not null, but if the worker task is null, if there's no worker task, we can just return true. Okay, so check bitmap worker task. That's going to be doing the work to see if there's a bitmap worker task currently operating on a background thread and whether or not it holds the right file that we want for the image view. So now we can go and call it. So if I go up here, just delete these empty space, and I'm just going to comment out these two lines. Right, now first thing I'm going to do is just call my check bitmap worker task just to see if there's any outstanding async tasks that could be tied into my image view. Okay, we pass it the image file and also the image view which we get from the holder. So basically, if we look back down here, if there is no current bitmap worker task, we can run this function. Now, first thing we want to do is to create our bitmap worker task object. Same as before. And that takes the image view. Oh, it's the holder that contains that. Okay, now we need to create the AsyncDrawable object. Okay, first argument is going to be is the resources. We can get that from the image view. And it should be get resources available to us, yeah. Right, the next is going to be the placeholder bitmap. And underneath that's going to be the bitmap worker task. Okay, we've now got the AsyncDrawable. We're going to actually assign the AsyncDrawable to the image view so the image view can call it back whenever it wants. So to do that, it's just a matter of holder, get image view, set image drawable with the async drawable. So we've now got a hold of the async drawable to be called when we want to check the bitmap worker task. Okay, then it's a simple matter of just calling out AsyncTask. Same as before, execute with the image file. Okay, that's done for checking the bitmap worker tasks when we're assigning new bitmaps to the image files. We've just got to do one more part. We need to go to bitmap worker task, and in the onPost execute, just let me comment out this code. we need to check to see if this BitmapWorkerTask has been cancelled or not. And then we also need to check if this BitmapWorkerTask is the same as what's being called by the ImageView. Okay, so first check to do here is just check to see if the worker task has been cancelled. So we've got a function is cancelled. If that's true, it means we cancelled this BitmapWorkerTask, so we can just set the bitmap here to null. Should stop anything else from happening down below. Now we go ahead and check if the bitmap has got data. And image view reference is still there. Same as before. Now we get our image view, same as before. Getting that from the reference. Right, now once we've got the image view here, we're going to do a call on the get bitmap worker task. So we want to check if the current worker task is the same as this task. So we can do that by, first of all, let's create a bitmap worker task object, or get the bitmap worker task. So worker task equals, and if we go into the image adapter there and do get bitmap worker task passing an image view, and now we'll check to see if they're the same. So if this is the current BitmapWorkerTask equals BitmapWorkerTask, and we'll double check the image view is not equal to null. We can go ahead and set the bitmap to the image view. And check for no red parts in our source code. It looks okay. Now let's run it. So when we want to test here, we don't want to be scrolling up and down and seeing an image suddenly change to a different image, which is the effects of concurrency. So let's run that. I'm just going to record that so you can see what's happening. Okay, again, we've got the image view, which is a good sign the application hasn't crashed. Let's scroll up. Now it's a bit slower. That means we're discarding bitmaps. Okay, I'm not seeing any of the concurrency effects that we were seeing before. Take it a bit slower this time. And let's go to the bottom, slow, and back to the top. Okay, the concurrency effects have been removed, so we've fixed the concurrency effects. The only thing is, we've slowed back down a little because we're discarding AsyncTasks if they're no longer applicable to the latest image view. When you recycle up and down, they do change. Okay, so that was successful. Let's stop recording. Okay, as with the format of these tutorials, I'm going to add breakpoints and debug the code changes we've made. So go into the BitmapWorkerTask first, inside the onPost execute, add is cancelled. Now go to ImageAdapter and add a breakpoint for the two functions we created, get BitmapWorkerTask and check back BitmapWorkerTask. And now in the onBind view holder, we'll put one here. That's plenty enough. Run debug. Okay, we've hit one breakpoint up here already on the on-bind view holder. Let's just step down. So we're going to check the, we're asking for a check here to see if there's any async tasks outstanding running in the background and if they actually hold the file we're expecting. Let's step down. So get the worker task first if it exists. And so we're calling a helper function recreated. So calling get drawable to get the drawable. Now we're seeing if that's an instance of the async drawable, the class that we've created. I wouldn't expect to see anything here because we're first running this. So no, there are no background tasks. This is the very first operation that we're running. Okay, continue on. So that's null. So there is no BitmapWorkerTask. So we can return true here. And then in the on-bind view holder, we can go about creating a new BitmapWorkerTask. Now creating an async drawable, which is going to keep a reference to that worker task. And then we assign the drawable to our image view so we can call it back. And then running the background task itself. So if we continue on, let me remove these 3 breakpoints. There's a few images here. I don't want to keep going around in a circle. And continue executing. Okay, now we're into the on-post execute. So if any of the bitmap worker tasks have been cancelled, we will be setting our bitmap to null. No, none have been cancelled. It can get cancelled any time. I haven't been able to see this during the debug. Okay, and continue down here. We do have a bitmap and we've got the references. Check here to get the ImageView. And then we get the BitmapWorkerTask just to compare it with this BitmapWorkerTask. So if that equals that and that's not equal to that, we set the bitmap. And then we just continue on. And just keep on running. So we continue on and just keep on running here. It has slowed down, but we have removed the concurrency problems that were plaguing us from the previous tutorial. Okay, so that's it from this one. As a recap, we done a lot of coding. We had to create the object to keep track of our bitmap worker tasks and assign the object to the image view. And every time we were creating async task, we had to check if there was any existing async tasks with our files or not, and cancel any pending ones that were no longer applicable to the current image view. So a fair bit of coding, but we resolved the issue here. We're starting to run a bit slower here again, so I think I'm going to have to apply more performance enhancements, which some of you might like, some of you may not. So you're getting a feel of whether or not you want to use third-party libraries or you want to get into using your code itself, but that would be for a different, separate discussion. Anyway, that's all for this one. If you are enjoying my tutorials, please subscribe. That's all for this one. Bye for now. Bit easier. Okay, that's still working. Let's see what happens when I scroll. Okay, we've got the same